Welcome to Amplifying Recruitment. In this episode, I sit down with TRN Founder and all-round recruitment expert, James Osborne. We talk about what 2024 has looked like for most recruitment businesses and what we predict, or James predicts, will happen in 2025. We look at everything from world-class basics to AI to sales strategy. There's lots of learns and wins that you can take and implement in your business to help make 2025 your best year yet. James, welcome to Amplifying Recruitment.
Thank you, mate. Lovely to be here.
So just for anyone that has maybe been living under a rock in the recruitment industry, could you do like a quick kind of intro to you?
So I've been in the industry for most of my life. I won't say all of it, but most of my life. Started out working in the Australian recruitment sector. So originally I was over there teaching scuba diving and sailing, and ended up falling into recruitment like everyone else does, or most people do. So worked in the Sydney markets for a number of years, worked across the whole of Australia, which I loved. And then probably about 20 years ago, came back to the UK for family reasons, come back and have a family over here. And I've been acting as a non-exec director and advisor ever since to the recruitment sector. Worked with lots of different types of businesses. And then about 8 years ago, we set up the Recruitment Network, which is a large global community of recruitment business leaders, recruitment companies, and recruitment advisors. And we all hang out together, and our sort of premise is about helping people maximize performance, productivity, and profitability. So that's sort of what we do. So every day I'm in recruitment, every day I'm talking about recruitment, every day I'm chatting to recruiters. Absolutely love it, love the industry. I think it's awesome. And yeah, interesting. It's been an interesting time for the sector, I think, to say the least. So what I really love about recruitment is our resilience and how we've come through moments like this, which I think has been fascinating. So I try and stay as positive as possible. I'm an optimist and an opportunist, as I would define myself as. So hopefully that sort of works in the industry.
Excellent. Okay. And so like you said there, it's you're exposed to like a lot of different recruitment businesses. Mm-hmm. We're filming this at the end of 2024, the very, very end of 2024. How would you summarise of all the businesses that you're speaking to? Because I think you've obviously got a very well-rounded view, right? Because you're speaking to, you're hearing the good, the bad, and the ugly. Mm-hmm. What's the general? Give us your sort of thoughts on a bit of an overview of 2024.
Yeah, I think it's been a fascinating year. If you're able to stop and sort of reflect and look back and look at hindsight, I think it's been a fascinating year. I think it's been tough for a lot of people, unnecessarily tough for some people. I think we've made it a lot harder than it needed to have been in some cases, but the market's been tighter, so it's been a tighter, tougher market. Some of the businesses, some of the members that we work with have done very well in this marketplace. Some not so well. Some have had a sort of horrible time. One of the things that we've mentioned before is that I think this year has dragged on. It's really dragged on. There's a lot of people who are quite tired and jaded, I think, at the end of this year. So I think Christmas couldn't come at a better time, I think, for many people. It's a time to sort of replenish and refresh a little bit. But, generally I look at this year as you can look at it in one of two ways. It's been a tough year, there's no doubt about it, but most people have got through it and come out the other side. I look at it from an optimistic point of view, is actually, well, when you go through these tough years, it's the most incredible learning curve. As an entrepreneur, as a business owner, as a recruiter. So for me, we can look back at it and go, it's a tough year, it's been terrible, and etc. Or you can look back at it and go, okay, well, it has been a tough year, but what have we learned? How's that made us better business people now and better businesses? And then how are we going to use that moving forward into 2025 into a better market? So the reality, the realist side of me says it's been a tough year. The optimist side says basically, but it's been a good year for learning, and let's now use that to our advantage. You
said something interesting there. You said we've unnecessarily tough. Would you tell me a bit more about that?
Yeah, I think in any market, we've been through cycles before, right? Every industry goes through cycles. My business goes through it. We're not immune to this, so we go through the same cycle everyone else goes through. And I think what you do when the proverbial hits the fan is really important. Some people don't necessarily make the right decisions sometimes when it comes to that situation. So our job at TRN is trying to help people, guide them as much as we possibly can to make the right decisions to navigate through good times, bad times, and everything else in between. So I think some people have made the mistakes where they've been a little bit like rabbits in the headlights and waited for the market to come back. which I don't think you can do, because in this classic example this year, the market's taken a long time to come back, longer than a lot of people thought it had. So if anything, it would have been easier if it was a lot deeper and then just bounce back again quickly, and then we can just crack on again. But that didn't happen. So I think if people waited for the markets to come back this year, they've made it a lot harder for themselves. I think we've had decisions in our businesses that should have been made a long time ago, and sometimes we don't make those decisions quickly enough. Sometimes about people, sometimes about our processes, sometimes about the markets and the clients that we're working with. So I think it's very easy for me to say this in hindsight, looking back, but when you do look back and when you do reflect, those who have had a better time, I think, are the ones who made quicker decisions and got on with it, were a little bit more agile in their approach and adaptable in their approach, and consequently have sort of geared their businesses up better to be better and transact better in a slightly harder marketplace. The ones who've had a tougher time, I think, have sort of been trying to sit it out and wait for it to get it good again. I just don't think you can do that anymore. And I think the market starts to flip, you've got to start flipping with it pretty quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. So all of that aside, like we're at the end of 2024 now. What are your expectations for 2025?
No idea. Who knows? I mean, who knows really? I mean, that is the reality. Is that we just don't know what's around the corner anymore. It's such an extraordinary world that we live in, where things are. We use the word volatile a lot. Probably more uncertain is probably a better word. Things are very uncertain. We don't really know what AI is going to do yet to lots of businesses and a lot of, I think in a positive way, but we don't really know its full journey ahead yet. We don't really know what's going to happen economically, globally, when we've got such pressures around wars and stuff potentially happening, etc. So there's a lot of stuff that's impacting us at the moment. So to try and predict what's going to happen in 2025 is a pretty dangerous route, I would suggest. I wouldn't want to be on camera to try and predict anything at this stage. But what I can predict is that we will have a better year than we probably had in the last couple of years. That's a typical cycle. How better, I don't know, but I think it's going to be better, which is good. I think we've got better businesses, as I mentioned, so therefore I think we should do a lot better anyway, irrespective of that. And I think we've got organisations and recruitment companies now who understand that to transact in these types of markets, you need to do things differently, behave differently, maybe have different service lines and different products that you're selling to your customer base. We need to be thinking about how we're utilising AI and technology and automations probably a lot better than we currently are at the moment, but that's coming, which is all good. One of the things that we say to people, and if you look at some of the data, there's a lot of recruitment companies out there today who are a lot smaller than they were a couple of years ago, but they're more profitable. So then you sort of ask the question, well, actually, I've got the learning coming out of 2024. Maybe I've got a smaller business, maybe it's more profitable now, maybe that gives me the ability to go and build something different and bigger and better, but not necessarily in the old traditional ways that we used to do it in recruitment. And the old traditional way was very much based around some of those vanity metrics, how many offices have you got, how many staff have you got, all that type of stuff, what's your turnover to an extent, where actually the really important stuff is how much net contribution and profitability and cash are you generating as an organisation, and is that highly scalable? And I think there's a lot of businesses, whether they know it yet, have come out of this period going, actually, well, yeah, we are actually. We're better businesses, and that's quite cool. So predictions 2025, no idea, if I'm honest. But I think it's going to be a good year if you wanted to make it a good year, and that's all up to you. And
you mentioned there about, you mentioned a few things that people should be thinking about. You're in NED with lots of different businesses. Like I said earlier, you're working very closely with lots of different recruitment businesses. What are the common themes that you're seeing, or what's the consistent advice you're giving people that are running recruitment businesses around like the don't focus on the vanity metrics of headcount and focus on instead contribution?
I mean, let's just go back to the foundations first and foremost. Is what's the number one bit of advice? Is just do the bloody basics brilliantly well and consistently well. So that doesn't change. So focus on doing the stuff that we know works, and just have minimum standards around that, and just keep pushing that and doing that. That's obvious. So
Can I just pause for a second there? You say about like doing the basics well, and I see this get banded around a lot. World-class basics and do the basics really well. What do you deem to be the basics?
Okay, well, let's start with KPIs. So in fact, I was actually just chatting to someone about this earlier on today. There's a big debate at the moment about whether KPIs are good, bad, ugly, and whether you're having them and all this type of stuff. And it's just a ridiculous conversation. You have to have data and metrics, whether you call them KPIs, minimum standard, whatever you call them, doesn't matter. You've got to have KPIs in your business or data to drive the business metrics. So what are the basics? You've got to have data to be able to look at your business properly and be able to analyze your business so you can do it better tomorrow. And then you start working out, well, what are some of those basics from a data point of view that you need to be doing? And from a KPI point of view, there are two really important KPIs. Number one is interviews generated, and number two is how many meetings you're having with clients, as far as I'm concerned. So if you're not hitting your minimum numbers and targets around minimum standards around number of interviews that you're generating for candidates and number of meetings you're having with customers, you're probably not going to do that well, or you might do well but you don't know how you're going to do that well based on your conversions from placements and conversions from new business development. So then that goes back into then, well, what's the basics mean from an activity point of view, if that's what we're talking about from a data point of view. So for me, client meetings is a USP in recruitment today. Those recruitment companies, those recruiters in 24 who have probably had the better years than other people, the ones who have been out and about seeing customers all day long. The market's been quiet, the market's been tough. Okay, we'll go and see people and talk about when's it going to change, what happens next, look at some predictive analytics and some data, talk about timings for the future, workforce strategies. So to me, being visible, being out and about is a basic that we have to be doing really well and consistently. And I don't think we have been in many parts of the industry. So there's a classic example, and it's bizarre, isn't it? Really, when the market gets tougher, we seem to sort of retrench back into our computers and hide behind emails and in-mails, etc. And we spend more time creating very clever and sexy marketing campaigns through this mass automation, so we can literally, in essence, vomit all over our client base, when actually what we should be doing is let's just go and see people again and shake hands and talk and chat and that type of stuff. And I think it's so important to do that in our industry, which is a human industry that's being more and more driven by KPI, by AI and technology and everything else. So there's an example of what one of the basics would be. When you look at interviews, what is the simple process to get candidates out of interview? I mean, we still live by the rule of the 3x3 rule. Every candidate you've got must go out for 3 jobs. If they don't, they'll find 2 other jobs from someone else if you haven't got them. And every CV every job that you've got, you must get 3 CVs out to, good quality CVs. If you send 2 or 1, you're significantly reducing your chances. That's just the basics. So, if you did nothing else all day apart from send 3 CVs out to your live vacancies and count out to 3 opportunities and go and see your clients and get your minimum standards up to 10 client meetings a week, I can't help thinking you would do really, really well in recruitment. The complex bit becomes, well, what's the compelling reason for a client to want to meet with you? How do you get in front of a client? How do you source those candidates in a talent? They're all the bits, the nuances about how we do things differently. But those minimum standards, they're the basics. That's what we should be doing.
And that's the unsexy bit, right? And that's why maybe people don't buy into that 3x3, because I was told that 20 years ago, the 3x3 rule. But as you said there, it's maybe more fun or a bit sexy to create a marketing.
Yeah, but generating cash and profit is quite sexy to me, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
No, it is. And it's interesting you say that, actually. There's a couple of businesses that we work with, and I won't say who they are, because if they're listening into this podcast, they'll kill me a little bit, but they won't. Because their businesses work in fairly unsexy markets, but have done really well, because those markets have been quite steady. They're not spiky, they're not sexy, that's not something. They're just very steady markets, and they've done really well in just transacting and locking in and just creating that continuous momentum in those marketplaces. So there's something very, very sexy about the unsexiness of recruitment as well, of running a business. So yeah, I think we need to be careful as an industry that we don't naturally gravitate towards I can't believe we're talking about sexy on the podcast, but we don't gravitate towards the sexy, the shiny new things, that type of stuff. When actually what we should be doing is just focusing on what's the stuff that actually generates net contribution and profitability and growth. And if you can identify, and it'll be different for every business, but if you can identify those 3 or 4 things in your business, then just do that every day, and that's all you need to do. Anything on top of that is added bonus and all that sort of good stuff, but get those bits done first. Marketing is a good example of that, and everyone's really jumping on the marketing bandwagon at the moment. And I think, as you know, marketing is massive. I think it's 50%, 40% of the sales process. So unless you're doing your marketing properly, podcast, whatever it is, automations, emails and stuff, then you're really, really limiting the top of that sales funnel piece. But So I think it's critically important, but it doesn't replace all the stuff that you've got to do. I was chatting to someone the other day who is so happy with all his email campaigns and marketing that was going out, and kept showing me all this different stuff, and it looked brilliant. And I said, brilliant. So how many calls, how many meetings have you had since that? He goes, well, none. No one's ringing. The trouble is they're not converting. No one's ringing. I said, well, you're just sending this stuff out and hoping the phone's going to ring. It's like, that doesn't work like that. That's just part one. Next bit is you've got to get off your ass and pick up the phone and do your bit next. So that's why it's not one or the other, it's all part of the same thing. And that building that strategy around that is hugely important, I think. So sexy, unsexy, doesn't matter. It works. As long as it works, that's sexy.
Yeah. Okay.
That's the last time can we use the word sexy.
All right, we'll park that for now. So I took us sort of into that. The first thing you mentioned about like common themes of what people are doing well was doing the basics really well. Mm-hmm. So we sort of covered that. What else? What else are the companies that you're working with that you think they're going to go and win in 2025? What are they doing differently or better?
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to talk about AI because it's part of it. That they've got their head around AI now. They are AI literate now. They're building some amazing AI components into their business now. They're not sort of just slowly waiting for, they might do some stuff in 2025 at some point. They're really on top of it, and they've mapped out their workflows as a business. They've looked at all the activities within their workflows. They've asked the question, why are we still doing that manually when that can now be done by technology? And if we're freeing up our recruiters to have more time back because we're taking stuff away from them, then two things are going to happen. Number one, we're going to increase their activity KPIs and targets because we've now given them more ability to go and do more of those things. And B, we will be more human as a business because if we can get rid of a lot of that back end heavy lifting stuff or away from people, then there's no excuse for a recruiter and not to get out and about in front of customers. And hell, we've got Zoom and Teams if we have to, worst case. So I think the AI piece is massive, and then the bringing those two things together to use AI to be more human as opposed to replace humans, that's the key to this. And I think there's a lot of recruitment companies doing some incredible stuff around this at the moment. And, I've seen some amazing things that are really blowing me away at the moment. And, we still got recruiters recruitment companies who are now getting excited. They've got the free version of ChatGPT, and they think they're Steve Jobs. So we've got to be really careful with what actually is possible here. So AI is a big part of it, and I think the AI strategy is massive. I suppose we had this debate I didn't have this debate. I wrote a blog post a couple of weeks ago, and then someone decided to have a debate with me about it because they were trying to tag onto my blog post, I think. But and it was all about whether recruitment's a sales industry or not. Is it something? And of course, it's a bloody sales industry. In fact, I'm not actually convinced there's any industry out there that isn't a sales industry in some format. If you can't sell, if you can't negotiate, if you can't run a sales strategy, then I don't know how you're going to grow your business and transact. So for me, the second thing that they're really on top of is their sales strategy. You walk into many recruitment companies, you say, you're telling me sales is really important. You're down at the moment. You haven't got enough sales coming through. So show me what's your sales strategy. Show me the sales playbook that you give everyone when they start in the business and they follow. They go, well, we haven't got one. Okay, so you say it's really important. It's the number one thing on your board agenda, job flow, etc. But you've got no real strategy behind it. That just doesn't wash for me. In the same way, you say hiring great recruiters in your business is a really important part of your business, but you've got no real strategy about how you're going to hire recruiters. So you're dabbling at it. We've got to take these things really seriously now. I'm just not convinced we do enough of that. So again, the smart recruitment companies are the ones who have, they built their books, their playbooks on this is how we do sales around here. This is how marketing and sales are aligned together. This is how we measure every conversion through the process and take someone who's an MQL into an SQL and down. And and then when we've got those customers, how do we penetrate those customers to get more out of them, increase customer lifetime value? And this is interesting. I had a great conversation with someone. It was quite a few months ago now, and we were talking about what does best in class look like in a recruitment company. And they're going, well, let's have a look at all the other recruitment companies out there. Who's the best at this, who's best in that? And I go, these are the wrong questions to ask. If you want to be best in class in recruitment, you need to break the businesses down into different workflows and identify which industries outside of recruitment are bloody brilliant at doing those things and bring those learnings in to our industry. So I look at, sales in recruitment. We should look at SaaS sales. So how do tech organizations certifications, do SaaS selling from top to bottom, the MQL, SQL journey and everything else goes in there. We should be doing exactly the same thing in recruitment because the process is identical. And these guys spend billions of pounds every year trying to figure out the best way to do all that. We can learn so much from that. It's unbelievable. In the same way when we talk about delivering a great user experience or service to our customers as part of our account management process or UX for the candidates. Now let's look outside of which industries are brilliant at the user experience. Now let's look at the top class restaurants around the world and go, what do they do to make you feel so special that irrespective of the price, you still come back there every single time? You can't afford it, but you're still going to go back there because it was so damn good. And if you can get that mindset into recruitment, so we got customers going, it doesn't matter about the price. You guys are so brilliant at finding what I need every single time without fail. I'm always going to come back to you and use you. That to me is the answer. So I think we look at best in class outside of the industry now and go, actually, well, what actually is best in class in other industries? What can we learn from that?
Yeah, brilliant. So just to recap on that, so it's world-class basics, having a clear strategy or using AI efficiently, effectively in your business and doing that now, right? I think you kind of alluded to it, but if you're just jumping on that now, you're probably slightly behind the curve anyway.
Miles behind the curve if you're not jumping on it now, yeah.
Having a clear sales strategy, and then you touched on hiring as well, like a strategy for hiring top recruiters as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, what's the most important thing in our business is the quality of the people that we've got, and a lot of people learned that the hard way the last 18 months, 2 years, where you've got some really great people working in recruitment, doing really, really well in a boom market. But actually, when they come into a less of a boom market, more of a downturn market that we've had, they haven't been as good. Top billers not being top billers anymore, top billers blanking and that sort of stuff. So then you go, well, actually, have we got the right people within our businesses, or have the people we've got, are they the right people? But have we given them the right skills to be able to do the job that they need to be able to do? And again, we're doing this thing, the Future Fit program, and it's all about what does a future fit recruiter look like? And what skills do they need to have? And are we giving them those skills? Are we giving them the best chance to transact at the sort of levels that we need them to transact now? If in a recruitment company today, if you're 3 times smaller than you were 3 years ago, you need to be getting your average GPs up to average across your low, middle, and top performers to well over 200k average. So that's quite exciting. But then you've got to think about, well, what's the journey from a low average recruiter, someone who's, I don't know, let's say an 80k a year, 100k a year recruiter. How do you get that person to become a 200k recruiter? What's the difference? What are they doing differently? What can they learn? What are the great recruiters doing better than them every day? And how do we train them to be able to do that? That's one side. And the second side, obviously, is the attitudinal piece that sits behind that. Is how do you get them to want to do that in the first place? And we've got to think a lot about that piece as well. So there's so many components. There's moving parts to this. But all that list you said, if we were sitting here 20 years ago, it'd be the same list, more or less. Probably wouldn't mention AI, but we're certainly talking about technology, all these internet, whatever it is. But the reality is, none of this has changed. Recruitment hasn't changed. The fundamentals of running a great business haven't changed. It's what you do within that changes, and that's the adaptability piece that I think is massively important.
So the Future Fit program is way more than we can possibly cover on here. But what are some of the takeaways that you're giving to groups all over the UK as you're running that? Anyone listening to this, what's some of the little snippets that they can take away that they should be thinking about from a future fit perspective? Given that, like what we're just saying here is, actually this stuff hasn't really changed. We're saying do world-class basics, have a really well-defined sales strategy. What are the things that you're talking about?
Yeah, again, this hasn't changed. So we're not going out there going, we've identified 5 crazy new skills that no one's ever thought of before ever, and we're training our members to be able to. I mean, of course you're not. You can't do that. It's impossible. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's just not reality. So are we getting recruiters to become AI literate? Yes, they need to be quickly. So how do you properly use AI to make you 10 times better than you were yesterday? So that's number one, and not number one. That's one component without doubt. But all the other stuff we're doing is not new stuff in the sense of the concepts. It's new stuff in the sense of how we're doing it. If I give an example, we sat down with a recruitment business, I don't know, let's call it a month or so ago, and we were talking to them about their sales strategy and what they were doing from a sales point of view and their outreach and everything else. And they're going, we're doing all of this, we're doing that, all the stuff we've always used to do. In fact, we're hammering it really, really hard. but we're just not getting the conversions anymore. And I said, well, the reality is what you're doing, the principles of what you're doing is great. You're hustling, you're doing activity, and that sort of good stuff. But what you haven't done is factored in the fact that the buying process has changed for the customer. So how the customer would like to buy today is different from how a customer would buy 5-10 years ago when that was working. So consequently, you are getting less conversions. Your emails and in-mails aren't landing. You're not getting that exposure that you used to get, etc. People don't want to see you, etc. So what they're saying is, oh, people don't want to see me. That's our excuse. I said, well, no, they don't want to see you based on the question and the reasoning that you're giving them now, because that's your old question. What's today's question? So rather than asking, what's the compelling reason for me to want to come and see you, as in I'm a recruiter, I want to come and see you to convince you to give me some business. What's the compelling reason for you to want to see me? And it's not just a case of, I want to chat to you about jobs. That's not a compelling reason for you. You're flat out busy. You've got a load of stuff to work on. You've had a long year as well. You're a bit tired and jaded. You can't wait till Christmas. The idea of a recruiter saying, can I come and have a chat with you for half an hour and ask you a bunch of open questions and talk about the new year plans? It's like, no, not really. I've got far more important things to do. And if I'm not going to do those important things, I'm going to go and have a drink somewhere and just chill out. So we've got to change the narrative and the thinking behind the reasoning why I want to do it. We need to, we touched this on someone else's podcast, which is about this word empathy. To me, it's one of the most important traits of a recruiter. No, it's not. It's one of the most important traits of anyone in business is your ability to empathize with somebody else. So in sales, I need to empathize with what you're going through today. What's your day like? What are you worried about? What are you concerned about? How do you want to engage with me? And then I build my sales strategy to align to that, rather than going, this is my sales strategy, and I'm going to hammer the hell out of it until you buy from me. And that's the old school way of working. It just doesn't wash anymore. So what we're not saying is don't do all the old stuff, don't hustle, don't do lots of activity, don't do lots of calls, don't do cold calls. That stuff's all really, really important. But if you're doing it in the way that we used to do it, not thinking about the fact that the way people buy from you has changed, it just won't work. And
a really easy or simple segue into that, I think, because I completely agree with the empathy part, right? For me, a simple way to dive into that is like client avatar documents, and having that for every single person that you're interacting with, one for HR, one for your CEO, another one for your mid-level hiring managers, but getting really clear on what their world looks like, inside out and back to front.
Yeah, but everyone knows that. You can read.
They don't do it.
You can read exactly. You can read 1,000 books that says basically, for years, marketeers have always started with build the customer avatar and then build your marketing strategy based on the avatar, and then it will land better. You get better conversions. So fairly obvious. And there's a million books you can read about that. And yet people just go, no, I don't do that. So get the point. Love the avatars. We'll put a picture up on the wall. Anyway, forget that. Let's just carry on. Bang the phones. It's like, you're missing the point here. There's somebody put a post up on social media the other day about some clever maths they worked out about how many calls you need to make in a day to do this and do that. And it's just like, it just doesn't make any sense, because I get the point. Okay, the point is do lots of activity. Okay, we get that. We're not idiots in recruitment. But at least explain how that looks different and how that works, as opposed to just keep saying, as long as you keep doing your numbers, guys, you're going to hit your figures. And it's like, and you've got a bunch of recruiters going, well, you've asked me to hit my numbers, I've tried this, and I'm really trying hard here. It's just not working. So can I try something different? And that's what they're asking for. There's nothing wrong with that, providing what we're doing differently is landing based on avatars, based on empathy, based on what customers will want you to do. And there's some great recruiters out there who are, having meetings after meetings after meetings with customers, having proper, meaningful conversations in their boardrooms rather than their meeting rooms, talking about workforce planning, because the customers have said, I genuinely want you to come in and talk to me because I genuinely think you can add value to me. So what are they doing to build that trust and rapport and that level of persona with their customers, to the point where the customer's saying, Jamie, can you come in? I need to speak to you, as opposed to waiting for that cold call to land at the right time in the right place, sort of thing. Two very different methodologies.
Do you think, I'll share an opinion here, and you may agree or disagree, but I think the way that recruiters want to work is different now as well. Again, I'll go back 20 years ago, someone said to me, make 100 calls, and I just sat there and made 100 calls and followed a bit of a script. And I think like this Gen Z kind of get berated, don't they, that they're lazy and snowflake and woke and all the other stuff they get labelled with. But actually, I think those people are far more, I think generationally, that they want to do something different, a bit more meaningful, in that they want to speak to a client or a customer and say, actually, this is what the market looks like. They want to understand the avatar. I find from being in recruitment businesses, there's lots of people that want to go and do something different and not just hit the numbers, as we said. And I see that sometimes the bottleneck is the manager or even the owner of the business are going, no, it's always been like this. This is the way that we should do it. Is there any...
I don't think anyone in
that?
recruitment wakes up going, I plan to having a really unproductive day and just doing some stuff. I think everyone wants to do well in recruitment. That's why we do it, right? I think I really try and sway away from the Gen Z conversations, because I think we really overthink this sometimes. I really do. I'm not saying, well, I am going to say no, but I think we overthink this sometimes, and I think some people use it as a really bloody good excuse. They go, this generation are too lazy, or they've got it on the plate, or they don't work hard enough. Absolute load of rubbish. I can show you some really lazy people in my generation if you want. I can tell me a generation when you haven't got a mixture of both. There's some amazing talents, amazing people in every generation, and this generation currently. So I really question that labelling piece. I just think it's completely wrong. I think it's a bloody good excuse for why it's not working for you. Like in any marketplace, there's 5 generations, bear that in mind, in recruitment right at the moment. So we've got 5 different generations of people within our business. So you've got to be, as a manager, a leader, have the ability to be able to inspire, motivate, engage people at 5 different generational styles, which is a challenge in itself, because everyone has different wants and needs, etc., based on that demographic. But if you as a leader can't tap into what is the intrinsic drivers and motivators of your people, irrespective of their demographic, of their age, etc., then you're never going to get the most out of them. They're never going to wake up and go, I want to do a really good job today for you, for the business, for me, for whatever, because you haven't tapped into their motivations, and then they might leave quicker. You could argue that people are more relaxed and more quicker to leave now and jump around a little bit because it's maybe easier for them to do so. I don't know. But that's not the question. The question is, how are we getting people of any generation to tap into their motivations, to be truly maximizing and energizing and exercising their true potential? And that's the question we have to answer. I don't give a damn what generation you're from. Everyone's very, very different, and I think we need to be really careful about labeling people, because I think we're really good at that as an industry. I just think it's wrong.
Okay. Something else I've heard you talk a lot about, I'd be interested in get your thoughts in some more detail, is communities. So I've heard you say this a lot at some events and some online stuff about building communities. And I've heard you allude to that from like a communities of candidates and communities of customers. And just tell us a bit more about what does that actually mean to you?
Yeah, it's just the evolution of the sales process. So again, I often look at, how do people buy? How do you make decisions when you're buying stuff? Whether you're booking a holiday, whether you are, whatever it is that you do, when you buy stuff, you now go through a slightly different process than maybe what you used to go to 20 years ago. So, and being part of a community, asking my peers what they think, I think came out of COVID in particular. So I think during COVID, we spent our lives going, what are you doing? Is it okay? Can I do it? That type of stuff. And that became a habit, because it just became ingrained. We did it all the time. And we started naturally building little communities. My mates, my friends, my trusted circle. There's all sorts of expressions and phrases, my tribe, all the different expressions. But they're all communities, that's the whole point. And I think people buy through their communities. I'm absolutely convinced by it. So then I go, well, if you're running a recruitment company, why don't you create communities? So if you build communities of people, clusters, clients, candidates, whatever, you own those, you nurture those, you're doing 2 things. You're bringing people together in large volumes, or hopefully in large volumes, but in volumes, which means that top of that sales funnel piece is getting bigger and bigger all the time. That builds up momentum. And you're doing one of the most important things in the sales process, which is allowing people to buy into you, build trust and rapport with you. So then when it comes to a buying decision, they're probably going to feel most comfortable buying from you because you spent the last 6 months hanging out with them as part of this community, whether that be light touch or heavy touch. So I think community is a sales strategy. I think it works brilliantly well. Some of our members have done a great job of this and created proper live communities. Some of them have actually monetized their communities now, so they're actually charging to be part of their community. And they've got partners who are sponsoring and advertising in their community, so they're now making money out of the top half of their sales funnel. I mean, just go and think about that. It's genius when you think about it from that point of view. And some members are just doing this sort of free community, quite light touch stuff, but it's building up a little bit of a group that they can nurture, which means that's their addressable market. We talk about the addressable market as being everybody in my marketplace I want to sell to. It's not your addressable market. Your addressable market are everybody in that marketplace that you've now got a relationship with at some point. It doesn't matter where they are on that journey on the sales funnel, but you've got a relationship with them. Then you work that relationship, and and then you've got recruiters who are very anti-sales. So some recruiters I don't like sales, don't do sales, I won't do sales, won't pick up the phone. Okay, fine. But do you want to invite those guys to that next community event? Oh yeah, love to do that, that'd be great. Okay, fine. Yeah. Okay, that's called sales, right? Let's just be honest about it. And I'm not one of those guys who tries to sort of hide the word sales and business development. Let's give it another name so we don't have to talk about it. It's sales 101. But they're doing the things that they're comfortable doing. And actually the reason why they're comfortable doing it is because they spend less time getting no's from customers and more times going thank yous and yeses. I can't help thinking that's quite a good way of doing sales from both sides of the fence.
Yeah, absolutely. And who should that be driven by? The building of communities, and that's fantastic if you can monetize that. I think that also ties in really well with something you said earlier about taking lessons from other industries and applying that to recruitment. But who should that building of communities of candidates or clients, should that be driven by the leaders in the business? Or if there's a recruiter listening to this thinking, oh my gosh, that sounds amazing, like how can they go about doing something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, where should it live? It should live within the company's sales playbook. So you build the strategy as a company. This is how we do sales around here, and this is how we measure and monitor it. And everybody in a recruitment company has a part to play in the sales process. If you work in the finance department of a recruitment company, you're involved in the sales process. You should be generating leads, and there's all sorts of clever techniques we can talk about how you get contacts and names and leads out of the finance division to be able to pass over to the sales team. That's old school stuff, but we can still do that, right? So it should be there should be a company way of doing sales, and communities is one of those what we call channels within that strategy. As a recruiter, if your company's not doing that today, but you just want to crack on with this, then just start thinking of reasons to get clusters of people together, common trends, common traits, commonalities, and it could be something as simple as go back to the personas. Okay, well, I've got a bunch of customers, and these are all their problems they're facing. They're all facing exactly the same problem. There's been a change in legislation, and they're all really worried about this. So as a recruiter, why don't I just get some interesting insights or some content and share that with those customers about that particular subject? And then the call to action from that is not, got any jobs or do you want to buy from me, is, well, why don't we maybe get together on a round table event, and I'll bring someone who's a bit of an expert in this area and we'll just chat about it. How's that sound? Sounds pretty good. Or I'm going to recommend you talk to these people here. You guys hook up together because I think you guys can help each other out. Or I've got a book I'd recommend off the back of it. We've been talking about this stuff. Why don't you just go and get this book? It's a brilliant book and blah, blah, blah. Whatever it is, but you're talking to a group of people and trying to get that group of people to sort of interact with each other a little bit, because then you become less of a thought leader in recruitment, which is I think where we go wrong in recruitment, because all the marketing stuff say, come a thought leader, come a thought leader. You never become a thought leader. I'm not a thought leader. You never become a thought leader, but instead you become a content and people aggregator. And that is what recruitment 101 is basically, are you the guy that knows everybody in this industry? Because if I'm going to need to recruit, I need the guy who knows everyone, basically. By building a community environment or feel, you're doing exactly the same thing. So, I love it when as a recruiter, if you haven't got a company-wide strategy, which I recommend you should have, but if you haven't got that, then as a recruiter, just think about ways that you can bring like-minded people together in some format to talk about the same stuff and the same issues that they're facing based on their personas.
I really like that. And I think it's actually probably easier now than it may have been pre-COVID, when we didn't have Zoom and Teams, and that might have been a bit weird to get a group of people
100%.
together. I think now that's completely normal, right? We spend half our lives on online calls, and if you can do that in a round table format, we're bringing people together.
Well, what really struck it for me was during right at the very beginning of COVID, when everyone got sent home like naughty school kids because you have to work from home now, and everyone's going like, what is this work from home thing all about? I'm like, how does this work? This is insane. And I just like, I really need to figure this out, and I don't know the answer. I have no clue about what I've never worked from home before. I have, but I've never had a company that's worked from home before. So how the hell are we going to do this? So we reached out to some amazing people over in the States who work from fully remote businesses, and these are like massive organizations. And I said, look, can you basically come, I want to talk to you. We've got some challenges over here. We don't know what we're facing here. Can you just come and talk to some of the TRN members and some of these recruitment leaders and just give a few insights into how you run this business normally? Because we're about to go into a world where we're going to have to start running our business like this for a period of time. And we invited a couple of amazing guys who run amazing businesses in the US, and also this guy who's he's a top tier lecturer at Harvard, and literally he's very happy to do so, very happy to help. 45 minutes. I think I had about 350 people on that first round table, and literally the question was, work from? I think it was like work from home. What WTF? It was like WFH, WTF. No, what's it all about? And he just basically said, look, there's nothing weird about it if you do this, and this. And I think that in itself did two things. A, it really helped those people who came to that session understand how to do the work from home thing. But it brought a lot of people really close together because they started chatting about it, and we had a reason to follow up with them, and it started building a nice community, and off it went. So there's nothing rocket science about this. They really, and if we overthink it, I think we're going to get it wrong. To me, it's just like, there's a problem, let's fix it, get one together. And as a group, we could probably fix it better together than on our own, and we can share some ideas. And I think if recruiters start doing more of that, I think that's really quite an exciting strategy. One channel, not the only channel, but it's definitely one of the channels.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. We're almost at time. So
well.
final question. And you've already said you don't want to make a prediction for 2025. So with your optimist hat firmly on, what would you like to see in 20? If we were sat here again in 12 months' time, what would you like us to be talking about?
I think what's the prediction? 2025 is going to be a normalised with unpredictability market. That doesn't really make sense. It's going to be quite a normal market, I think, like it was back in the day when we all did very well, absolutely fine. So it won't be the boom market we have, but it'll be a good market. And it will have unpredictability in it. So there will be stuff that's going on that's going to throw us a couple of curveballs. I think AI will be part of that. I think some of the stuff geopolitically that's happening will be a bit of a part of that type of stuff. But generally it'll be a fairly normal year with a lot of stuff going on around it type of stuff, but it won't be anywhere near as bad as last year. So this year. So I think that's number one. That's the prediction. So we've got we can sort of see the playing field, I think. I know what that looks like. I think a percentage of the industry have figured out how to be different in today's market and have now adapted their businesses and their business models and their people and their processes to that, which is good. They're the ones who will do really, really well. We've already seen it now. We've had record months, record quarters being bantered around all over the TRN community, which is great. Not everywhere, but with some who've just got on and figured it out, and then they're cracking on with them. So what I really hope will happen in 2025 as recruiters, as recruitment companies, is we just get on with it now. And we stop talking about it. We stop trying to work out what the forecast is going to be and what's going to happen next, because no one really can, if we're honest about it. Let's just get on with the basics brilliantly well. Let's adapt our businesses to what our customers want us to do. Therefore, we're removing the friction for them to be able to buy from us, which I think is huge. We've still got talent shortages in most parts of the industry, so let's just get even better when it comes to talent acquisition. And again, some of that community stuff we talked about and other things, it's no different. The concepts are the same. And let's just have a really forward-looking, positive year, sort of irrespective of what's going on in the markets. I think if we do that, I think people will start having their best years ever. They won't be from a headcount point of view. They won't be from a turnover point of view in some cases. It will be from a profit creation point of view. I had a conversation with someone yesterday on Friday who they were literally saying they've never made so much profit as a monthly rolling target as they are at the moment, which is great, but they're definitely a smaller business. Their ego was really hurt when they downsized. It really hurt them, sort of stuff. You know, oh, we're going backwards and sort of stuff. Now they've realised that was the best thing that's ever happened to their business. So I hope the recruitment sector will realise that. 2024 has been a good year. Actually, when you reflect on what it's done for our businesses, it'll only be a really good year if you utilise that to our advantage moving forward. Simple as that.
Brilliant. James, thank you so much for your time today. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Appreciate it. Thanks, Jeremy.